and a lot of history there. So you know what I'm saying? It's a two-phase kind of thing. Yes, I want to find out about my mother, but I'm also trying to deal with this situation
The
I'm in.
life.
You know, on
Yeah.
restoring this property for history and for whatever. You know. So anyway, you get the idea. It's
Yeah.
got
There's like mm,
there's got to be a balance
you
in
get.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
That is beautiful. You get to share a lot of point of views of
yeah,
searching your mom at the same time. How are you dealing with life itself?
right.
And that is a wonderful point of view. I do have a question for you. It's really interesting as well to know if there are any figures that you came across in your life, like a mother figure, a dad figure, a grandparents. Do you have those? Did God give you those kind of people, like a
Yeah,
figure? Did you encounter such things?
yeah.
Or
Well,
how did you dealt with having no parents, no one to.
yeah. Well, another avenue in that story is that the people in my family, from both sides, my mother's and my dad's, uh, there was a lot of anger, a lot of the Hatfields and the McCoys. You get it? And I had
Mm,
an aunt that didn't tell me about an uncle that I had that could have solved the problem within a phone call. And so that's
I
all going
don't
to go in there
understand.
too. But anyway,
Why?
uh, yeah, I understand that. But there's also other relatives that people can hopefully get in touch with. Um, but I want to reveal those kinds of things so that there might be a possibility of some kind of closure for these people that feel kind of left out. In other words,
Yeah.
Mr. Maury Povich, you did a show about all these successful reunions, but what about us that,
The,
you know, where we go, sort of thing.
mm.
You know what I'm saying? So anyway,
And that's what I believe where people is going to be excited, the process, how you came to the point where
yeah.
from where you've been and where you are now. But did you ever kind of blame God? Why do
Um,
bad things happen to good people?
you know,
Why are you still kind of, why are you so strong, I would say?
at the beginning, when I was, coming in, first of all, I didn't know a lot of this until I was like 14, and
Mm,
and I only got bits and pieces. So, yeah, after a while, um, I probably had thoughts at times like, even in the restoration of this old famous historical building, that we were getting treated badly by partners that had to come that we brought into the deal, and they weren't living up to their word. And yeah, I remember a time in the hotel where I just fell to the ground or to the floor, calling out to God, like, "Why are you allowing this to go on?" And I
mm,
did for a while feel the hatred towards my mother that my relatives on my dad's side were telling me. But after a while, I got thinking, well, wait a minute, this, this is only one side, and God has nothing to do with that. God doesn't want us to
wow.
go through these sufferings and stuff. So a lot of this is going to be in the story. We have to,
That's a substance there.
yeah, we have to
Mm,
bring people up from the pit of where they're at, because I'm sure a lot of people who feel abandoned end up. I don't know. I'm This is a guess. I might do some research on this for the story, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that might commit suicide because they felt so abandoned. In business or in family or in love or whatever, that it just all piles on and like, hey, what's the use? You know, why am I here? Bingo, gone. You know what I'm saying? So we have to encourage those people somehow, not to give up, even if they don't get the conclusion they want on a specific area. Life is still worth living, you know,
Oh my God.
you know,
Wow.
right?
I would love to read that book already. I was talking to Robin before. I was telling her I'm not supposed to be here anymore, and I wanted to take out my life during pandemic. And 7 people died on our neighborhood. They took their life during pandemic because they don't know how to move forward.
Yeah.
And you have this great story where I don't see the good side of it, like positive side, but you kept going.
Yeah.
And
I had another example that I want to put in the story, that one of the people that I met in the town where I'm trying to restore this building, I got to know them, and I found out that he is a child of somebody who told him that his father or mother, I forgot which, was dead and didn't want him. Well, that turned out to be untrue. So I've got other things that I can put in, because I'm not in this world alone. Even though you may feel that way at times, we're not alone, and we gotta bring people out of that pit so that they realize. You got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would love to hear that. I remember my mom told me, I did not,
No.
I wish you were not born.
Uh-huh.
My mom told me that before. But Dennis, I'm excited for your book. I'm gonna send you more questions just in case, okay?
Yeah.
But that is the first one right for now. Thank you so much for making it clear.
Can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
Another movie that has something similar to that in it is It's a Wonderful Life with James Stewart back in the 40s, where he's in a town and he can't seem to get away from it because he keeps getting trapped into running the savings and loan that his father had, and he can't get away from it, and all kinds of things to happen during the process of him trying to save this savings and loan company, that he gets up on a bridge and he makes that comment, "I wish I was never born." And suddenly this angel comes down, and the angel is in the water, and he makes this person now who is, quote, never born, jump in to save this guy, and then the whole story processes from that. Anyway, it's a great Christmas story. But anyway, yeah, a lot of people have thought of that. Why I wish I was never born. Everything keeps happening wrong, stuff like that. So anyway, but suicide has got to be put out there. That's no solution. That gets nothing done. You know what I'm saying? And we've got a lot of people committing suicide.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Anyway, now that I'm thinking about that, so many things are coming to mind. I just wish it was all recorded. In
It
fact,
is. I recorded it.
I got a feeling it just got recorded.
Yeah, I've been recording it.
Dennis, it's recorded.
Yeah.
I can send you the transcript if you want to.
Oh, you
Well-
recorded it too?
Yes.
I recorded it too.
Yeah, that would help. That would be great. Things would get done faster.
I think Dennis just answered one of his own questions, which is, "Hello, darling," and his battle with Asperger's and autism, his battle with his emotions, his mother's time she spent in prison, the things that happened to her. She actually had a much better life than she was having when she, came out of prison. She fell in love with an amazing man who adored her. Isn't that right, Dennis?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
And she.
And I did get to
tell,
meet him.
Tell him about what you told me. What he said about your mom, how she used
Oh.
to buy presents and how
Well,
she.
the whole back apartment. Now we're talking Chicago, and it's very old buildings. So he had a barber shop up front, and behind was living quarters, and she had that filled up with stuffed animals, and he would he would say to her at times, because she was a happy-go-lucky person during the day, but in the evenings, and then she'd be sitting there and maybe watching TV or something, and she'd start to cry, and then he'd say, he was kind of a gruff guy, but he had a good heart. He would say, Betty, 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 what's the matter, Betty? And she'd just say, oh, nothing, Frank. It was something that happened a long time ago. And he says, yeah, Betty, I know all about it. So,
Did he ever tell?
Where
Did
did
she
this
ever
happen?
tell him?
huh?
Where,
What was that?
where did this happen? Where is the setting of this?
Uh,
Where did it happen? In the prison?
in Chicago. In,
Oh, my.
well, yeah.
Do you know what prison she was in?
Oh, yeah, Joliet in Illinois. See, what part of the problem was this was World War II, and she was not prepared to be a mother, but she did have a mother, a mother-in-law, a sister, and a sister-in-law, and none of them helped. And so she was there in the house with two babies. One, I was just weeks old, and then my brother was a year and a half older than I. But my dad, who was denied going to war and wanted to, but he now became a war worker, and they were making all kinds of war equipment, working 16 hours a day, 6 and possibly 7 days a week. And so here she is with two babies, not knowing anything about what to do, and nobody to help her, and a husband who was never home. And if he did come home, he was frustrated because he had to do certain things which he couldn't, but he also couldn't get much sleep. So it was a bad situation all around. And so she reacted, and that cost her, her babies, because she had to go to prison for what she did.
And tell him about that.
Huh?
Tell him
Well,
about
she just
that.
What did she do?
She just got frustrated one time, and I guess I was crying, 6-week-old baby. So she slammed me against the wall, and I ended up with 14 major fractures. And
And a crushed skull.
yeah, I think it crushed my skull or something when I hit the wall or whatever happened. But anyway, she was brought to trial, and I guess in Illinois, they didn't understand things like postpartum depression, and of course the other things that were going on too. So they put her in prison for 3 years. So, and then my parents on the other side, like it says in the story, then I was taken across the country by my grandmother, which is my dad's mother, and my dad, leaving her in Chicago without even knowing that we were gone or what to do, So this was definitely a Hatfield and McCoy kind of family feud going on. Your son isn't good enough for my daughter. Well, your daughter's not good enough for my son, and there was no cooperation. And it's wartime, and it's just horrible. A lot of parents and a lot of wives ought to get some kind of veterans compensation and stuff, because they suffered too when the husbands and the sons went off to war. It was horrible.
So
No.
did you see photographs of the damage that was done to you? Did you ever see any newspaper articles or
Well,
anything?
yeah, I was given some articles, and then later on in my story, I'm going to find out how I found out about my uncle by getting more stories, more articles from the Springfield archives in Illinois, where they had copies of all the newspapers back then. So I got information that way too, and it said in the article that I wasn't given originally. It said that my uncle and my grandfather were sitting in the back of the courtroom, and then gave their names. See, that's the thing that I didn't have. Had my aunt in 1975 given me the name of my uncle, who is a male and does not change names, like women get married, their names change. And I didn't know who my mother's last name was. So here it said Albert Lindquist and I forgot the uncle's name now, and my uncle's name in the paper. So we had a way of going back to the archives and finding out who attended that her father's funeral. If there was such a thing, check the and yes, a Betty, but her new last name was there, Lindquist. Schweiberg. So bingo, we got a name to go by. Anyway, it's
The discovery.
yeah.
So,
discovery, right.
Dennis, when you were recovering from your injuries, we're having a conversation here. It's on speaker.
Yeah.
So, when you were recovering from your injuries, were you put in like a Catholic orphanage or something?
Well, it was a.
What was it?
My wife, who also was from Chicago, and we met in Concord, California, years later. But and of course she was older than I was. But she remembers the place that I was put as a baby, suffering these injuries. I was put in a home for the friendless. That's what it was called.
That is so sad.
Yeah. So, and my future wife at that time, who was 14 when this happened to me, she had she was aware of that place and may have been in it at one time visiting somebody. Her family problems. Anyway, it's
But all those things, even
Yeah.
Shirley's, all of that is part of your journey.
right. Yeah.
So it's very important to, as you think of these things, to speak them out loud, because this makes it so much easier
Yeah.
to transcribe it
Oh,
for you. This is so hard. This is so complicated to just try to sit down and write. So I was just trying to remember. So when you met up with your stepdad that you never met when she was alive, who
Yeah,
would have been
Frank.
your stepdad, Frank, was he open? Was he willing to tell you stories about your mother?
Absolutely.
So what are some of those stories?
Well,
Didn't you tell me there were like 300 people that came to
Oh,
her
yeah.
funeral when she passed away?
Well, she used to walk to the store, just a little convenience store, a little down the block of where, but it would take her for a 20-minute walk. She'd return 3 hours later, and Frank would say, "Betty, Betty, where were you?" And she said, "Well, I met somebody. I was talking to them." Well, who were they? I don't know. I just meet them. I talk to them. She was very open, very friendly, and at her funeral.
Wow.
At her funeral, there was over 300 people in that church, and we have services in our church of parishioners who have passed away, and she and 300 people. Man, I think if we got 100, that would be friends and family. That would be great. But she had 300 people at her funeral. So anyway, and I found the grave.
To me.
And I got to go there because it says that in the song. I know where she's at now. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet her when she was above the ground. Sort of. Anyway. But anyway, there's a lot to talk about. And even the trip to go to Chicago, I have a brother that I was going to take, and that didn't work out. But anyway, there's a lot for this story. That's why I don't want to really commingle too many other things. Like my quest to be a baseball player. In fact, I wanted to be an L.A. Dodger more than just a ball player. But anyway, that was my dream. kids say, "Well, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Well, I want to be a cop, or I want to be a doctor, or something. I had no idea, until the Dodgers moved to L.A. and they lost that first season badly because a new home, new ballpark to play in, and all this kind of stuff. They did terrible, seventh out of 8 teams, but I stuck with them, and that was my dream. And
How old were you then?
and I was a good athlete. Well, I was 14 when I moved there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that is an integral part of your journey, Dennis.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why I think it's actually one story. The
Well,
things that Shirley contributed,
what
the
I'm
things that your Frank contributed,
yeah.
the family, all these things.
What I can
As
do
you
with
think
the
of them, you can think of them as being chapters.
yeah. What I can do with the 2 stories, I want to write them separately. But what I can do with the 2 stories is after I get them written, just look at them and see how I can fit some pieces in. Because my baseball story ends up being a fictitious thing, fictional, because of what happens when I achieve my goal that I got in my baseball story. Anyway, but that can all happen. But anyway,
What was that? Were you tried out with the team?
no. When I finally found a way to make it to the pitcher's mound of every team in Major League Baseball.
That's so huge, Dennis.
Yeah, a nobody who never got a chance to play finally makes it to the pitching mound in every major league stadium and in front of the crowd, and how all of that plays out. And then there's some story after that, the fictitious part, Anyway, but I'll keep that for the story. I know that one by heart. I know what how to put that one down. Anyway,
Why
I
would
think
that
this
be too difficult?
Really work.
huh?
I think this would really work with the both of you, wherein we would have a session every week, and I would ask questions. You talk about your story. I'm gonna send you the transcript, and you edit it for the whole week.
Yeah,
And whatever you have written, you can also edit it, and that is a big progress for both of
Yeah.
us.
you know,
Both of you, I would say.
if you got a few
They're
more.
separate.
If you got a few more minutes there, I'm at a point on my High Darlin story where the guy, they're almost ready to get into the story of the young girl that's living in the house at the end of the street, and the young man is ready to leave. And what I have to do is fill up the body of that story before he makes his return, which nobody knows until that very ending. But one of the things, and I know there's a number of movies that I have, some of them are older movies done in the 40s, like Alexander's Ragtime Band, where he gets discouraged and gives up his band and ends up in World War I in the service. Well, that's one of the places my man is going to go to fill that void between the young girl and when he comes back and she's the older lady, and I got to fill in what he's done. So I've got a number of movies that have war scenes in them, but they're not war movies. You follow what I'm saying? It would have to be fill-ins. Like, how does this guy survive the next 4 to 4.5 decades till he finally just gives up and goes back to the girl, not knowing what's going to happen, but it all works out. So,
Well, one of the things I'd like to mention to you, Dennis, is that your story could be inserted, your experiences in your journey to find your way back to your mom could be incorporated into the My Hello Darling story. It's just something you've never thought about before,
Yeah.
but those are segues of what happened to you along the way.
yeah, I can see that, but
I'm
Yeah.
just mentioning it,
Yeah,
and
I
it's
know.
going to be on here, so
Yeah.
you'll be able to
But anyway,
see it in writing.
yeah. Anyway, that's basically what these three stories are about. Um, Actually, the story, except for the fill-in part, is my wife's story, and I might include her as co-author or something, even though she's passed. She's no longer with us.
We can.
I would still like to, dedicate it maybe, have a dedication in there to her. So anyway, that's just some of the stuff that
Yeah, and you know what's the exciting part about writing journey is it evolves, it matures, it becomes better, it becomes professional as we do this on the process.
Yeah,
We will discover a lot of things together, and don't worry about thinking what would be the end result. Just focus on what
Yeah.
you're gonna have to work on right now.
well,
And
getting all of these things down is the main
Yeah.
thing, I think.
yes, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
and then
So, yeah, go ahead.
well, this
Sorry to cut you off.
the beloved Betty Jane story, which is what the title of the song is. It may not be the title of this part of the story, but anyway, I have a good timeline for that, and I have written stuff down already, but it's just a matter of filling in the blanks and trying to explain the overlaps of time and everything, so that people get an understanding of, because I'm in the story. I got to put in that there were times I couldn't search for her because I was involved in living, and so there would be gaps, and then I would get a piece of information, and then there would be another gap, sort of, in what I was doing, until finally, it all comes. Finally, when my wife makes the phone call and we had a Chicago phone book at the time, and when we looked up the name Scheuberg, which became my mother's married name, we found some Scheubergs in the phone book, and by calling, in fact, she made one call, and that was a niece to the man who married my mom, and lived with her. They had about a 34-year marriage until she died in '83. But I didn't make, and my wife made that phone call to Frank, but that was already 1991. So it was 8 years after she had actually passed away that I actually found her and what happened. But there's a lot. He explained an awful lot from that side, and I pieced it all together from my side. There's the thing is, in these stories, there's a lot of stuff, and I don't want to make it too big. I'm not doing a Gone with the Wind type thing. You know what I'm saying? A big novel, a big novel like that. Uh,
War and Peace.
yeah, War and Peace,
Yeah.
Gone with the Wind. In fact, somebody in 1991 also wrote I guess, a sequel, and called it Scarlet, like Scarlett O'Hara of Gone with the Wind, and that's another big,
Oh.
big book, and they did make a movie out of that. But anyway, no, I don't want to get too many things involved, so people might lose track of where things are
The
going.
continuity. But what you got to realize is all of that background stuff
Yeah, I know.
can be edited out, and you can think about that. But I think I was just thinking that the problem is with children that are born with autism is that they're very difficult because they frequently, the type of autism that Dennis had probably made him a crybaby. So, and she was ill-equipped. But the point is, there's a lot of families that get torn apart because they don't have the right support in
Yep.
these circumstances. And back in the day when Dennis was experiencing his form of autism, they were like maybe, I mean, I could check, but let's say 1 in 1,000. And now the numbers are so high for autistic children, and instead of calling them autistic, there's a whole spectrum of children that are on this, like a scale of autistic situations, and what a burden it is on a family. And here she was not equipped. She how old is your brother? How much older is he than you? How many
He's
months?
a year and a half.
He's 18 months older.
Yeah.
So they were both babies. And there's another part of the story, which is that they were both abused by the next partner that the dad had. And we don't know, do you know how long you were in the friendless home for the friendless?
No, I don't.
How did you even get out? Do you know how that happened?
Well,
Because
I'm sure my dad got us out of there, got me out of there, but no, I don't have any knowledge of that. No record or anything of how long I was even there.
But your dad died when you were only 8.
Yeah, my dad died when I was 8 years old.
So there's some time when your dad was involved with you after you recovered physically from your injuries. But was your brother in there also?
Oh yeah. No, he wasn't in that place.
So he was with your dad?
I think I was there more to have a place. It was like a hospital kind of environment. I don't know why I was there. I don't know why I wasn't in a regular hospital. And maybe my dad didn't have there was nobody to help take care of us. I don't know. Those are questions I don't really know. But I want to say this one other thing, and I want to get your kind of reaction to it. My dad, when I was 8 years old, was a carpenter. My dad built a church in Downey, California. Now we're talking church, we're talking a physical building. And my dad,
Okay.
now like Jesus was a carpenter, according to the Bible, and he built a church, but we know what kind of church, right? And both of them died at the age of 33. So my dad has that parallel thing, and it's only been since I've been here at Spirit-Filled Church here in Sparks, Nevada, that I've been saying that. But every time I say it, I'm going like, Lord, give me a little clue about what all that means, But anyway, but he was not allowed to go to World War II rather, because if he would have gone in, the first loud noise on the right side, which is he would shoot from the right side, a rifle noise, a shot, that could have ruptured something in his inner ear, and he could have died. That's
So
why.
how did they know that? Do you know?
I don't know.
Because he
what-
did die of a brain aneurysm.
Yeah, he did later. But see, I think also he was kept out of war by the Lord so he could build that church. And then once he built the church, hey, you're done, buddy, you're coming home. That kind of thing, I think.
Well,
So anyway,
the other thing that I think is very important is the spirit of depression and suicide that is caused when families become, dysfunctional. And there is such a pervasive spirit of suicide since the pandemic. And we are seeing a lot of young people are committing suicide. Dennis is a prayer warrior. We're on the prayer chain. And we get secular people that are not part of our church who put in requests through their friends at our church who have lost children or whose children have attempted suicide. And there's just, this all is just tied together. That's why your story, Dennis, against the wind, the whole story, including the part that you share with Shirley in the Goldfield Hotel, all of these things are really amazing. Like the Horatio Alger's story of the American dream. I mean, Dennis has found it very difficult to accept compliments or to acknowledge, that people care about him. And when he became born again at our church, I think that changed his life so dramatically. And he's really loved and admired at our church. He's just a stand-up guy. He's always there when they need help, that kind of stuff. And so he's maybe had difficult beginnings, but he's an inspiration. And I think the story is going to be very helpful for the Asperger's, for the postpartum blues people, for people who rejection, for the children that are ripped from their parents' arms when they go to prison, and how corrupt the system is. The people that are trying their best to help others are being punished instead of helping them help the others, because maybe they're not perfect at helping. That just came up at church. What is today? Wednesday. So that just came up at church
today
last
is D-Day.
night.
No,
yeah, today
no,
is Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor Day.
Today's Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th. So what I wanted, I had a really important thought. So what I wanted to mention was, when this happened to Dennis, there really wasn't any adequate provision for the people that were involved in it. And so a lot of things happened that today maybe wouldn't happen. It's like if children were abused. So how old are you? You were born in 1944. There were no laws on the book in this country for children who were abused for their protection until like 1967 or 68 or 9. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I was 6 weeks old. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so I'm gonna suggest that we stop the recording, and then I want you to walk me through. I've had his phone on airplane mode. I want you to keep that one too, but I would like you to walk me through how to use his iPhone 6 to send you the email. What?
It's a 7.
Oh, it's an iPhone 7. Sorry. Anyway,
Still old.
so it's on airplane mode. So Dennis, could you say what day it is again? It's Pearl Harbor Day.
Today is December 7th, 2022. The 81st celebration, or whatever you want to call it, of Pearl Harbor Day, 1941.
So we're signing off here.
Yeah.